Welcome to What's Up in Jeju, where I visit places around the island and talk about what's happening with hashtag Daily K's host, Peter Bent.
We're going to a museum today.
Yes, we will move the topic over. I could talk K-dramas all day. But yes, today we're going to a museum. We're going back to a museum, which all of you may know by now are my favorite my favorite places to be.
Yes, you
in a museum.
Geek out in them.
Yeah, I really do. And this one was no different. We've done a lot of deep dives into Jeju's natural history and folk history. And this particular museum explains it all in one place because it's literally called the Jeju Special Self-Governing Province Folklore and Natural History Museum.
Oh, wow. That's covering a lot, it seems like.
Yeah, it covers all the bases. So it goes a little bit into everything. To tell you a little bit more about this museum, it's located right in the heart of Jeju City, not too far from the airport. So if you're looking for one last thing to do before you have to catch your flight, making a visit to this museum would probably be an awesome idea, in my opinion.
Nice.
Yeah, and I'd never been here before I had to go for today's interview, but it was really fun and really interesting. In my opinion, one of the most interesting things about this museum was that it has exhibitions on not just the history of Jeju life, culture, and folk traditions, all the traditional stuff there, but it also has a whole hall dedicated to Jeju's natural history. I have an image of their geology room, if that's up.
Yeah.
Okay, so
We've got an image of me in the studio by myself instead of the geology room, but I'll try and act like a rock. Okay. Do I look like a rock? Kind of. We've got the picture as well. Here we go.
Okay, good. Last week, we studied a little bit about Jeju's geology and the different rocks and layers, right? We went to the World Natural History Museum. So today's museum has a whole section on all the different types of rocks that exist here and that were created by volcanic eruptions. Yeah.
Wow, some of them are spectacular. They look like little cliffs almost by themselves.
Yeah, it was so cool. The ones in the picture are behind glass, but there are ones that you can touch and you can rub and you can feel the textures on them, and it's just really, really interesting.
Oh, can you grind them up and eat them to have like a sun or something like that?
Oh, but maybe just rub. So the other halls explore the cultural and traditional heritage of the Jeju people, and I found the exhibit it's called "The Life of a Person Born in Jeju." And this was really fascinating because it covers the life of a Jeju native from birth to death. And it starts off with a scene of two women praying to the goddess Samsunghalmang for a son. Because as we know, in Confucian tradition, giving birth to a son was of the utmost importance, right? In order to carry on the family line. And then the next scene is that of a young woman who had her prayers answered and just had given birth to a baby boy. And I have a video clip of the commentator who gave me a tour of the museum telling me a little bit more about this scene.
Okay, let's check it out.
이제 제주에서는 할머니 우리 조선 낳게 해줍서 해서 이렇게 자식을 낳게 해서 빌고 그다음에 이렇게 자식을 낳죠. 요 금줄 보면 아들이잖아요. 꼬치까지 달렸으니까 여자일 때는 술만 하고 금줄이라는 거는 그만큼 위생적으로 외부인이 오지 못하게 하는 거예요. 미신적인 거기보다. 그리고 이거 애기 구덕이라는데 그때 이제 애기 볼 사람이 없을 때는 이 애기 구덕에 애기를 짊어지고 밭에 가죠. 그래서 이거 가면 그 언니나 이제 오빠들이 그 애기를 봐주고 형이나 그런 거 봐주고. 그리고 이제 왕이자랑 하면서 얘가 졸리지 않은데도 누우면 졸리게끔 흔들어 버리니까 그걸 반 정신 기절하는 거죠.
Well, that's a hilarious commentary.
Yeah, she was so cute. But if we have the picture up, it's just an image of what was on the video. But the first thing that you notice here, it's a baby in a cradle, is one of the first things that I would notice, at least, is the rope that's tied in front of the room that the infant is in. And then
Yeah, like a birthday decoration garland or something.
Yeah, kind of like that, right? And on the rope, if you look closely, there are pieces of charcoal. So the black stuff there is charcoal, and then the red items are red peppers. And this particular rope would signify that the baby is a boy. If it was a girl, there would only be charcoal.
Yeah, because that would make a lot of elementary school students in Korea laugh and giggle. And I also laughed and giggle, I'll be honest, because that's also the word red pepper in Korean that we use for a boy's private parts. Right. So I guess that signifies it really clearly. Yeah.
Yeah, gochu is the word. is the word for pepper. Yeah. So the the commentator told me that rather than being a mystical, like superstitious thing, it was more to let people know that there is a newborn in the room. So to not enter. Essentially a do not enter sign for hygiene reasons, she was telling me, but also to give mom and baby some quiet and privacy. The basket.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it really does, right? So the basket that the baby is in is called an 애기 구덕, and this was the baby cradle. It was a basket with a rounded bottom, and it would rock back and forth. Yeah, and you would carry the baby in this basket and even take out the baby into the fields in this basket, and they would place it in the fields. Yeah, so I don't know if you noticed, but there was a real photograph, a real life photograph in the back wall of the image that I had just done. Yeah, so that's a real life photograph of an actual scene back in Jeju's history where there is a big brother or sister rocking their baby to sleep while mom worked in the field.
Yeah, and the guide was saying even if the baby wasn't tired, they'd just put him in there and make them sleep almost. Right? Which, okie dokie. So, talking more about that exhibition, you said it looks at someone's life, like whole life, including from when they're not even born, being prayed for.
Right. Yeah, and it's so... After the baby's born, the child gets older, right? So the next scene is when the child gets older, they're playing with games, and it shows you all the different types of games. And they looked a lot like the games that I played when I was growing up too. I was like, interesting. Oh,
nice.
Yeah, like the slingshots.
Similar to Korean kids.
Yeah, slingshots and tops, and like back in the States, I mean, because I don't know, maybe these things are universal. I don't know.
Okie dokie. Oh, yeah, slingshots. Yeah, I guess that's not limited to Korea. I was a good boy, so I never did that. You were terrible, Angel, aren't you? Badly behaved. Goodness gracious.
So moving on. So as the children get older, they're expected to help with housework and field work, right? And one of the jobs of the women and girls was to fetch drinking water every day. And this was an important part of the daily chores, obviously, because you can't go a day without water. And I'm not sure why yet. I am going to try and learn more about this, but something about the pots that Jeju people used was really special. Maybe its shape, maybe what it's made of. I'm not really sure. But we talk about it a lot. If you go to museums, they talk about the 물 허벅, that's what it's called, the water jugs, a lot. The commentator, what she's telling me in the next video is about the different types of jars, their names, and then how to carry water properly back home.
Okay, that's a really crucial part of life back in the day. Let's look at the video.
이거를 허벅이라고 그래요. 허벅이고 어린 나이가 진 거를 대바지 또는 대백이라 그래요. 만약에 이게 허벅이 조금 부리가 깨지고 그러면 이제는 오줌 허벅으로 해서 오줌을 넣고 짊어지고 밭에 가고 그때는 오줌 허벅. 요거는 물 허벅. 그러면 물가에서 물을 들고 허벅을 항아리에 부어서 이제 물을 담아 놓잖아요. 그러는데 물 구덕에 이렇게 팡에 놓고 다시 길어서 올리려면 굉장히 힘들어요. 힘이 드니까 야근깨를 써서 밥만 채우고 올려놔야지 해서 짊어지고 절대 안 됩니다. 물이 출렁거려서 집에 가보면 전부 옷은 젖고 물은 하나도 없어요. 그러니까 이거 가득히. 그러니까 제주 사람들 얘기할 때 고지식 해라. 고지식하게 요 주둥이까지 해야 물이 출렁거리지 않고 길어서 갈 수 있어요.
Oh, wow, there's a real art to bringing water back.
Yeah. if we have the image up there, that is the image of a 물허벅, the water jug on the bottom left, and then a real life photograph of a Jeju woman back in the day carrying it. The lower one is the water jug. The top one on her upper back is the laundry basket. So she's off to the water.
That's a lot of weight.
I know. I know. Oh, wow. I can't imagine how heavy that must have been.
Yeah, with a smile on her face as well. So that's called in Jeju dialect a 물허벅.
Yes. And then if it's a child's water jug, the commentator was saying, it's called a 대바지 or 대배기. The name was different because of the person who was carrying it, and maybe the function was different. I'm not sure. But there were several uses for jugs that look like this. But if one were to crack, but still be usable, so it wouldn't, leak, it would turn into an 오줌 허벅, a pee jug that they would use to carry pee out for composting. And really, nothing went to waste.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So not just for convenience, but actually using the urine for composting.
Yeah. And the commentator was also saying in the video how important it was to fill up the jug, the water jug, when you were carrying water back home to the very top. Because what would happen is if you would get lazy and just fill it up halfway or just partially saying, oh, it's too heavy to carry, so I'm going to give myself a break, what would end up happening was it would slosh back and forth in the jug on the way back. And so you would lose more than you had in there. So she was saying the secret is to fill it up to the brim to keep the water from sloshing around.
Wow, there's got to be some science behind that.
Yeah.
You would assume, just stupidly, if you didn't think about it in depth. If you fill it to the top, that's harder because it's heavier. But with the sloshing mechanism, that must make it harder as well. Maybe there's something to do with the surface tension of the water on the top. I don't know. I'm just trying to sound intelligent and failing badly. Tell us more about the exhibit.
Right. So then as the children grow up, they eventually get married. So the next scene is the wedding process and ceremony. And this was really interesting too. The commentator was telling me how for the weddings were, I guess this is universal too, it was a huge part of the culture. And it was a whole entire process. And pigs were raised. Some pigs were raised just for this purpose, and they would try and make it as big and as fat as possible. Yeah, because for the wedding ceremony, the wedding feast, the fattest pig was slaughtered, and then the whole town would be invited to feast in celebration of the wedding. Yeah, it was just a huge deal. It took days.
Wow, that sounds delicious. I want a whole Jeju pig now.
Yeah, and again, nothing went to waste. They used it up, all of it.
Wow. And then the exhibition goes on past the wedding.
Right. So it continues on. The folklore hall continues on. So after the wedding, then they get older. You have the 환갑, and then they eventually die. So you have the whole funeral scene too. But then if you move on, it takes you on to introduce Jeju's food and the clothing, housing, rituals, all of that in seasons, right? And I have an image of this too, just a couple images of what this exhibit looks like. So it's called Seasons of Jeju.
We've got that up, yeah.
Good. And it takes you through spring, summer, fall, and then winter. The two images that you see here, if you notice the backdrop, the color is different. So the blue is the winter season, and then that reddish color is, I believe that's the fall. So it just shows you what their daily lives or what their rituals would look like during those seasons.
Oh, some warmer clothes, perhaps, with what looks like a shawl made out of straw. Doesn't look that comfortable, but might keep you warm on the windy, cold days. So you went recently, Angel, to the museum.
Yes, I went I think it was a week or two ago, but earlier this month, as I was planning the visit to this museum, because there's a lot of back and forth phone calling and you have to set up the dates and all of this stuff that goes on behind the scenes. And as I was planning for the visit to the museum for today's show, I was told about an event that they are holding for Children's Day weekend. So I decided to make it out for a brief visit to kind of get a sense of what the museum was about. And I'm so glad I did, because I had a really fascinating interview with a cut maker. I don't know what they're called. I'll just say kat maker.
The traditional kind of Korean hats that were made famous in Kingdom,
Yeah.
the drama with the
Oh my
zombies.
gosh.
Because
Yes.
a lot of American fans thought it sounded like God, like the way you say "gad." Gat. So they were known
Yeah.
as like God hats for a little while.
Oh, was it?
Wow.
Oh.
So there's like a traditional maker of these.
Yes, dating way back to the Joseon dynasty. And you're right, Peter. It's just somehow become kind of this like sexy thing in pop culture. I mean, Chu Ji-hoon and Kingdom. Yes, I get it. Yeah. But she showed me a little bit of the process of making a portion of the kat, because there are actually two parts to the hat. It's the upper rounded part, right, that goes on the top of the head, and then the brim. And each part is made by a separate artisan. So there are two separate people who make each part. And then another artisan, a third artisan, puts the two pieces together. It's all different. It's all a different thing. It's all separate work, right? Yeah, really cool. And the
amazing.
The reason for that is because the brim and the hat, I found out, are made from different material. Right? It's so...
Really?
Yeah, really interesting. I thought the whole thing was made out of horsehair, because that's what I've been told. Oh, kats are made out of horsehair. But actually, the top portion is horsehair, and then the bottom brim is bamboo.
Oh, no, I didn't know that. I wonder if the ones used in the drama are also made in that traditional form, because they do look pretty like uniformal in their texture and color and everything. So you would have just assumed they were the same thing, and definitely assumed that the same person made the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, you wouldn't think of all those different experts being involved.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if what you see on TV are the real deal, because they're quite expensive. They're really, really expensive.
Yeah.
And I think they're all protected, maybe, is kind of the feel that I got from the lady I was interviewing. So I do have a video of her telling me a little bit more about it and the process.
All right, here we are.
옛날 처음부터 여기에 보면 이렇게 모자가 생겼잖아. 이거를 충모자라 그러는데 그것만 알고리로 만들고 이렇게 차양 부분은 전부 대나무로 만들었고 이거를 입자장이라고 말총과 양태를 걷어다가 조립을 하는 사람이 입자장이에요. 이 입자장 손에서도 알고리를 사용하는 게 아니고 이렇게 요금 마무리에 이렇게 동그랗게 이렇게 씌우잖아요. 그 갓도 그런 마무리도 전부 대나무를 사용했다고 합니다. 그러면 물기가 젖어서 말라도 뭐 신축성이라든지 그런 게 없고 이제 좀 빡빡하고 잘 휘어지는 그런 성질로 이용하고 통풍도 잘 되고.
Wow, learning all about the cut and the bamboo that's used in there.
Yeah, so if you're looking at, if you saw the video, it was in front of her. She was making the brim portion with bamboo. And all of that, you would not be able to guess that is bamboo, because it's so thin. The little strands, it's like
what have
string.
they done?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so all those little pieces of bamboo, she ends up braiding them into like the template part. But this process of extracting the thin bamboo strings is a really, really old traditional process that dates back to the Joseon dynasty. And they are, right? And this skill really has been lost. So there's nobody on the mainland who does it anymore, or who knows how to do it. The only living artisan of this traditional method that, again, dates back to the Joseon dynasty a long time ago, is a Jeju native. And she's been handing down this part of Korea's cultural heritage to her students, so we don't lose it to history.
Wow. So, pulling those strands off, those thin strands, because I guess, when you look at a stick of bamboo, you could imagine there must be thousands of those little strands making it up. But having to pull away each one of those and then thread it in like that's going to take ages. Ages. Wow.
It does take a long, long time.
Yeah, there must be a quicker way now in modern times to just make a manufactured one out of plastic. But if you want the real deal, like a traditional one, that's got to be expensive, yeah.
Right. She was telling me that because of just how long and arduous the process is, they can only complete 2 brims a year in a single year. And then
What?
Yeah. And then when they finally have the whole hat put together, they say it's like 억대. So it's like hundreds of thousands of dollars for one.
Oh my goodness, for a gut. Oh, wow. Okay, that is like a real designer item, isn't it?
What's Up in Jeju is supported by JDC, which is creating a free international city that resembles nature, embraces the future, and reaches the world.
Arirang Radio.